Stacking days. That's the motto that Sacramento Kings players and coaches have implemented for this season's team. Stacking days, being able to carry out consistent effort and improvement day in and day out, not just letting it be a one-time thing. Stacking days, meaning you carry over the success that you had, the effort that you played with in game one of a back-to-back into game two, or maybe even improve upon it. Well, even though this term was implemented by Rico Hines, and we've heard Kings players and coaches talk about stacking days time and time again this season, the Kings haven't been able to live up to their motto by any means. Inconsistency is really the motto of this Kings team. And once again, after a strong performance, even though it was in a loss last night to the Los Angeles Lakers, the Kings come home, play a very shorthanded Hawks team, and lose again. Let's talk about it. We'll do so on today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season and all off season. If you're looking for in-depth analysis, game-by-game breakdowns, highlights, interviews with local and national experts, full coverage of your Sacramento Kings from January through December, this is the place for you, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And today's episode is brought to you by Truebill. Truebill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions that you don't want or need. And Truebill can even negotiate better deals on those subscriptions that you want to keep. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I've been a Sacramento sports media member for the last 7 years. This is my 8th season covering Kings basketball, formerly with Sports 1140 KHTK Radio, now with ABC 10 News and Television here in Sacktown. And the reason why I don't use second night of a back-to-back as an excuse for this Kings team is because of their stacking days motto. First and foremost, I'm tired of making excuses for this team, period. Anyways, this team should be significantly better than what they are. And I've said that a million times this season. Don't need to go into why again. But if your motto, if you're going to live by these stacking days, these two words, if that's how you want to be known, that is the bar that you're setting for yourself, and you're making that as public as you do, then myself and the media, fans, radio hosts, everybody else, we're going to look at that term and we're going to judge you accordingly. And we can't say that this team has ever implemented their motto. Maybe a handful of times, maybe a couple times at the beginning of the season, or they'll put together a couple of back-to-back solid performances. But just look at how the year started with the win over the Miami Heat. Now, I thought the Kings played very well in their loss to the Lakers the next game and ultimately fell short in the fourth quarter, giving up too many points. But to go from that Lakers performance last night to this game against the Atlanta Hawks, to continue to fail to recognize that when teams come against you or play you shorthanded, regardless of if they're rested or not, the Atlanta Hawks did not play last night, the Kings did. Regardless of that situation, when a team is as shorthanded as they are, you cannot take them lightly. A team as shorthanded as the Hawks were in this game, missing Trae Young. We know how important he is to that team. Missing Bogdan Bogdanovic, former Sacramento King. Missing John Collins. Now, this roster is still very talented in the Atlanta Hawks, so by no means did I see those three being out and expect this to be a pushover and easy win for the Kings. The Kings can't look at any team as an easy win, so I didn't allow myself to think that. But how is it possible that this Kings team continues to allow themselves to be beaten by teams like this, to give up career performances for players like Kevin Huerter? Well, I don't know if it was a career performance for him, but he certainly played like a superstar in this game for Atlanta. How is it possible that the Kings continue to make that same mistake? It's not a joke anymore. It used to be a joke that, oh man, the Kings, if the Kings are playing a team that's shorthanded, man, they have a worse chance to win than if they were playing a team that was completely healthy. It used to be a joke and a fun thing to kind of say and talk about. Now it's just the truth. Alvin Gentry said as much in his post-game press conference. He was asked about playing shorthanded teams and why the Kings have struggled so much this season. And he said the exact same thing. It almost feels like we play better against teams that are at full strength. Nobody knows why, other than The most logical conclusion, which has been the case with this Kings organization for well beyond just this season, this Kings team, they played at a level of their competition. Now, actually, truth be told, it would have been better for the Kings to play to the Hawks level tonight because they would have won the game if they played to the Hawks level, but they didn't. They played to a lesser level. They allowed themselves to get pushed around by a shorthanded Hawks team, and they allowed themselves to get pushed around in their own building. Stacking days, hell, this team struggles to stack quarters sometimes. And while the Kings did avoid a massive collapse in this game, which I guess we should celebrate, even though that feels like such a massively low bar, they struggled to do what they were doing well against Los Angeles and Miami. They struggled to score the basketball. They looked terrible. Their offense was horrible. Their defense was worse. I mean, just this Kings team is just bad. Another game where they are just bad, where they look completely different. The Jekyll and Hyde of the Sacramento Kings team. One night, they can look like they're capable of hanging and beating anybody. The next night, they are able to hang with an Atlanta Hawks team that they should be beating. And I don't use that term "should" lightly if you've heard my my Locked On Kings podcast in the past, because it's hard to say the Kings should beat anybody. But in reality, if you're playing at home, coming off of the performance that you had against the Lakers, now I know the Kings aren't at full strength themselves. They're missing Rashawn Holmes, who of course is an important part of this team, and their starting center. They're missing Terrence Davis. But at the same time, you're taking on an Atlanta Hawks team that is missing arguably their three best players, and you can't beat them, just like you couldn't beat the 76ers at home when they were without their entire starting lineup. And there's been a handful of games like that so far this season. Just that's who you are. That's the Kings' motto, is losing winnable games, not stacking days. Honestly, this game was boring. Just extremely boring. I was watching on my couch from home. I have not been to a Kings game for a while. I'm avoiding, both for my own personal reasons with COVID-19 and having a newborn, and because honestly, I can't be bothered to really invest that much time and energy to go. And I understand that I have the opportunity to go and cover this team and watch this team for free, and I don't want to do it. So I admire Kings fans that are continuing to pay to go, although it looks worse on television than it does in person. And I know that because I have friends and colleagues at the game that will send me pictures of the crowd when I ask about it. And I did get a picture of the crowd from someone in the arena tonight, and it looked a lot better in person than it did on television. That being said, and I tweeted about this during the game, and I've talked about this multiple times so far this season, the Golden One Center losing that typical Kings atmosphere, the high energy, the passion that really only Kings fans possess, the fact that that's gone, and we don't need to get into a debate as to why, what the effect of COVID and all the excuses for it. There are more than enough valid excuses. All I can say is the arena being as empty as it has been, and for those who are in attendance, struggling to create energy or to really find any kind of energy to support this team or to the level that we're used to here in the California capital, that speaks volumes to me. That has been the one thing that's been consistent with this organization. The one thing been consistent with the Kings organization during this entire playoff drought, and now they're losing that. Fans are tired. Fans are exhausted. Hell, a media member like me doesn't want to go to the game, would rather watch from home. And even that being said, I was trying to find other things to do to distract myself. I was falling asleep on my couch. But at least the final few minutes of this game were entertaining. After really a boring 43 minutes, the final 5 minutes or so were back and forth and were fun. Kings had more than their fair chances to win this game. Unfortunately, they couldn't get a stop to save their life. I mean, Kevin Huerter looked phenomenal. Cam Reddish, who we're going to talk about in more detail later on, he looked really, really good. This Hawks team, as shorthanded as they were, got 6 players finishing in double-figure scoring, including Huerter's 25 points off the bench in 33 minutes. Kings couldn't get a stop. And that's against a Hawks team that shot 26% from three-point range and 45% from the field as a whole. But when it mattered, Kings could not get a stop. The Hawks scored 33 points in the first quarter. Second and third quarters scored 21 points and 24 points. Defensively, the Kings were doing well. Unfortunately, the Kings were down by 9 points at the end of the first quarter. The Hawks, I think, missed their first 10 or 11 shots in the second quarter. They were ice cold for the first half of the second quarter. And that's not an over-exaggeration, 6 to 7 minute stretch where the Hawks just weren't scoring. They were stuck on 33 points. And the Kings went on a 12-0 run to actually take a lead in the second quarter. And how did they end the second quarter? Down by 9 again, going into half. Like, this Kings team needed the Hawks to go ice cold, completely ice cold, to fail to score for 7 minutes just to get themselves back in the game. And then ultimately, they lost that by the end of the quarter. And then when it comes to the fourth quarter, they give up 30 points, can't get a stop. Granted, the Hawks made some pretty big shots. Cam Reddish hit a big three. Kevin Huerter hit a ridiculous reverse layup over like 2 or 3 defenders. Like, the Hawks made the plays that they needed to play, but they needed to make to win this game. But at the same time, too, the fact that they were in that position in the first place and the Kings allowed them to be in that position, it's telling. It's very, very telling and not at all surprising. And I'm not going to lie to you, I ended up laughing, especially when the Kings were down by 4 points, I believe, and they drew up what was actually a pretty solid play out of the timeout for Buddy Hield, coming off of a double screen, getting him a good look. I'll get it. It was a deep, straight along three, but it was a good look for Buddy Hield. He had a good first half, terrible second half, and he airballed, like missed everything, like a good foot right of the rim. And I laughed. I'm sorry, I laughed. I couldn't help it. And I know there are Kings fans, based off of my Twitter account, that laughed as well. And this is not going to be a anti-Buddy Hield thing, although I know people are gonna bag on Buddy Hield and jump down Buddy Hield's throat for that. I just laugh because it's what this Kings team is. Like, it's fitting. It's fitting for this Kings team to struggle to beat or to hang, honestly, with a team like Atlanta, shorthanded at home, to not be able to get a stop despite De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton, who I'll talk about in a second, playing very, very well and literally trying to drag this team to a win. And then you come back the other way, you get your best elite three-point shooter a good look off a double screen, and he misses everything. It's fitting. It's just poetic justice in so many ways. So I laughed. Like, I couldn't help myself. Maybe it's a coping mechanism. I don't know. I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. The good news is, if I can pull any silver lining from this game, it's how De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton played together. Now, we were concerned, maybe not concerned is the right word. We've been concerned so far this season, especially earlier on in the season, that Fox and Halliburton weren't really capable consistently of playing well together. And then you had last night's game against the LA Lakers, where De'Aaron Fox played very well, and Tyrese Halliburton, I think, only scored 7 points, and he struggled. Well, in this game, Fox and Halliburton were the only starters that really did anything. I mean, Fox finished with 30 points, 12 of 23 shooting, had another decent performance from the free throw line, going 5 of 7, but the majority of those free throws came during the fourth quarter. He hit some clutch free throws. He did all that he could to help the Kings win this game. And then Tyrese Halliburton added 24. So you're getting 54 points combined from your starting backcourt of Fox and Halliburton. Of course, you want that number to be higher. Halliburton shot 5 of 7 from three-point range, passed up a couple good looks still, so still a little more passive than what you'd like. Only had 2 assists on the night, which that number needs to be way up if the Kings are going to be effective. But then again, that could do with the fact that the Kings weren't hitting shots. And yet, here's a Kings team that we know struggles to shoot and struggles to hit at a high clip from three-point range. They shot 40% from three-point range as a team in this game, and they still lost. And hell, they only allowed 108 points. And I say only because that's pretty good for the Kings. If you're only allowing 108 points, you're putting yourself in a pretty good position to win, at least based off of what we expect this offense to do. But only 8 points from Harrison Barnes, 6 points from Marvin Bagley, although he did have 12 rebounds for the second straight game. Only 7 points for Damian Jones, who was in foul trouble the entire night. Alex Len gives you 7 off the bench. Buddy Hield gives you 11 on 3 of 8 shooting. But don't worry, Buddy Hield and other members of this Kings team, after this game is done, they're smiling and laughing and dapping up Trae Young as if nothing happened, as if they weren't just embarrassed again on their home floor in front of their fans. A very winnable game against a shorthanded team. You lost again. Buddy Hield, you just airballed a 3 terribly when the Kings needed you. When that elite shooting mattered, it wasn't there. And you're going to smile and dap up Trae Young after the game. Plus, there was a video that I saw on Twitter of Buddy Hield talking and covering his mouth, talking to Jeannie Buss in Los Angeles last night, which I'm not going to make too big of a deal about that. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Buddy was saying, hey, get me out of here or get me to LA. Whatever. Like, I don't care about that. If Buddy wants out, Buddy wants out. That wouldn't surprise me by any means. But I mean, I'm tired of seeing this Kings team lose, get embarrassed at home, and then just smile and laugh about it afterwards. I'm aware that the NBA is a friendly league. I'm aware that players care about each other. They like each other. They're friends. But that maybe not the time and place to do that, especially when the majority of the fans that actually paid money to show up to the arena are leaving pissed off and disappointed again. Kind of looks like they care more than the players do sometimes. We've been talking a lot this season already, even though the trade deadline is still a decent ways away, about moves that the Kings can make. And you've heard me talk a lot about me wanting the Kings to make a significant game changer move. And I believe that is what the Kings and Monte McNair are looking to do. Well, there's been discussions about potential moves that the Kings can make. And one of the discussions amongst Kings Twitter, and I know on different radio shows and things like that, and different podcasts, have been the idea of the Kings and Atlanta Hawks negotiating a deal that would send Harrison Barnes to Atlanta and bring Cam Reddish amongst another player to Sacramento. I'll go into details of that. This is not a reported rumor. This is just a conversation that's been had in Sacramento. And I think some Atlanta Hawks fans have discussed this as well. We'll go into that here in just a second. Want to let you know today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Truebill. Do you know why free trials continue or renew without your consent? It's a business scam to get your money out of you, really, without you knowing. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need, want, or you simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. You just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. It's really that easy. And you have a Truebill concierge that is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to go through the hassle. Like Matthew says, in a matter of seconds, I saved $660 for the year on my DirecTV bill, saved $120 for the year on my SiriusXM bill, saved $840 a year on car insurance. He did that through Truebill. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. The Kings obviously need to make changes. I don't know how many times I have to say that here on the Locked On Kings podcast. The Kings need to make changes. This team is not good enough together. They have a lot of talent on this roster. They don't play well together. And even if this team is currently, I think they still have sole possession of the 10th seed in the final play-in spot in the Western Conference. That's not where this team expected to be. They're not moving in the right direction. They need to make a change. It's time for this core not to necessarily be blown up, but to be changed. And Sam Amick reported today amongst a pretty lengthy article just with rumors and conversation and news around the league. He talked a little bit about the Sacramento Kings. A couple things from that article worth bringing up. The first thing that's worth bringing up is that the Kings are still very much interested in Ben Simmons. Shouldn't surprise anybody, although I still don't think a Ben Simmons deal is happening if the Kings or unless the Kings are willing to move on from De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton, which I'm not saying those guys are untradeable by any means. But I think the Kings are going to avoid breaking those two up as much as possible. They're not really to give up or ready to give up on that quite yet, unless they're getting a bona fide star. And I don't know if Ben Simmons, at least for me, Ben Simmons doesn't fit that category without hesitation. And I think that's what the Kings would be looking for if they're willing to give up one of those two of Fox and Halliburton. But the other part of this article that was, I guess, worth mentioning is that there have been multiple reports that Vivek Ranadive, Sacramento Kings owner, who's had a history of meddling and issuing his decisions or his opinions into basketball decisions more than he probably should. He has given Monte McNair the complete green light to make whatever moves Monte sees fit to improve this roster. I don't know if you want to believe that. That's what Sam Amick is reporting. It's a shame that has to be a story, but it really is with the reputation of this Kings front office. Those are really the two major takeaways from Sam Amick's article. But this Kings team, they need to make changes. They need to improve. And what does improvement look like? Are you talking about short-term improvement? Where the Kings make a trade this offseason to ultimately boost their chances of actually making the playoffs? Or are you talking about potential long-term improvement, which can also be, I guess, twisted as tanking in some way? Do you take the risk of selling players for draft picks or for young players taking on projects and trying to kind of reset a little bit? I understand arguments for both. I'm going to share with you what I think is both the right move and the move that the Kings are going to be looking to make. Because the Kings are, if they're not in sole ownership of 10th, they're hovering right around it. And they're only 3, 4, maybe 5 games out of an actual 6th or 7th seed in the Western Conference. The West is so bad this year that door is going to be open and continues to be open for the Kings, regardless of how bad that they have looked so far this season. As long as that door is open, even if it's just creaked, and it's not creaked. It's good halfway open for this Kings team right now. As long as that door is open, the possibility of this team actually making the playoffs is there. They are going to go for it. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that that's going to be the case. Now, is that the right move? I personally think it is, because I've also wanted this Kings team to make a swing for the fences move for a while. It's really the only thing that they haven't tried. But I do understand those who are saying it would be terrible for the Kings to try and trade assets like draft picks away to try and acquire a player that may just be a year or two rental to get this team to be a 9th seed at best or an 8th seed at best, and ultimately maybe not make the playoffs. Or if they do, they make the first round and they're swept in 4 games by the Suns or the Warriors or whoever gets the top seed. Like, I understand that argument. But I'm telling you, from my understanding of this Kings organization, the pressure on the organization, the pressure on Monte McNair, as long as that door is open, the Kings are going to go for it. Which means if the Kings have to go for it or are going to go for it, they need to make a significant win now improvement type move. Much easier said than done. It's very difficult to, unless you're a team that is very much established and is not afraid to mortgage all of your future, like the Brooklyn Nets did, basically, to put together a super team and acquire a disgruntled superstar. Other than that, it's very difficult for a team like Sacramento to get a good player in return for the pieces that they're willing to trade, unless you're willing to attach heavy draft compensation to it. And even that might not be enough to get the type of player that I think the Kings are ultimately looking for. So I look at this trade proposal, this trade conversation that I've seen amongst Kings Twitter and Atlanta Hawks Twitter about a Harrison Barnes to Atlanta move for Cam Reddish and Danilo Galinari. And the first thing that jumps to my mind is it's a lateral move at best. Short term, Kings don't really get better. Long term, there's potential that the Kings get better. Now, I'm a bigger fan of Harrison Barnes than I know some people are right now. He got off to a ridiculously hot start this season, has not been the same since. I completely recognize that. So I'm not judging Harrison Barnes based off of how well he was playing at the beginning of the season when I said that at that point he was basically untouchable. He's not untouchable right now. If the Kings can get value for him, they will certainly include him in conversations. And I think he's going to be included in a lot of conversations as the trade deadline gets closer and closer. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. If I'm trading Harrison Barnes, who plays or who provides depth at my weakest position right now, that I have no depth for, and I'm using I as if I'm the perspective of Monte McNair running the Kings, I'm looking to get a player or players that are coming in to fill his spot and be able to, at worst, play to his level. Can Cam Reddish and Danilo Galinari fill the Harrison Barnes role short term? Maybe. And that feels like a big maybe. Long term, I think Cam Reddish has more than enough capability of being a better, especially offensive player, maybe not all around player, but better offensive player than Harrison Barnes is. So I understand the argument for a long-term move. And in terms of Danilo Galinari, I mean, like, he's an offensive player. He doesn't play a lick of defense. Like, there's no real long-term future for Galinari in Sacramento, at least in my mind. So really, it's a Cam Reddish for Harrison Barnes move with Galinari in there to make salaries work. It's a lateral move short term, which is why I don't think the Kings are going to do it, which is why I personally wouldn't do it. I like the idea of Cam Reddish here in Sacramento. I really do. That is a move that you potentially try and make this offseason or beyond, not this season with an approaching deadline when the team is in a position to actually go for it. Now, again, you could argue, well, that's a problem. You should make that move because it's a good move versus forcing a maybe potentially worse move or more of a gamble in order to, at best, be a 9th or 8th seed. I hear you. I get that. I'm telling you, I don't believe that's what the Kings are interested in doing right now. So I don't believe there would be much interest in this kind of move. But you let me know. Would you make this move? And do you think that if the Kings were to trade Harrison Barnes for Reddish and for Danilo Galinari, that move would make this Kings team better today? Better today, better for the remainder of the season. That move would help this Kings team accomplish their goal, which is making the playoffs. Not just a play-in, but making the playoffs, giving this team a legitimate chance to win a game or two in the play-in to make an actual playoff series. I don't think they do. But if you do, let me know why. at Matt George Sack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, and feel free to leave your thoughts down in the YouTube comment section down below. And if there are other moves out there that you'd like the Kings to potentially explore, as the trade deadline gets closer and closer, I'm going to have a lot of guests from around the Locked On Kings, or rather the Locked On Podcast Network, for all different podcasts, come on the show and talk about potential moves that both teams can make. And I'm going to be putting on my fantasy GM cap and doing as best as I can to negotiate moves that I think would be the right move for the Kings, of course, from a fantasy standpoint. But I want to hear the moves that you would make as well. So again, at Matt George Sack on Twitter, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts down in the YouTube comment section down below. I also want to hear your thoughts on Built Bar. What is your favorite flavor of Built Bar? I've told you so many times, my favorite flavor is mint brownie. With the new year and all those resolutions to maybe lose weight or put on muscle or just get overall healthy, Built Bar can help you with that while replacing that sweet tooth that I know everybody has. If you like chocolate bars, if you like candy bars, but obviously they're not going to help you accomplish those resolutions, allow Built Bar to replace those chocolate bars and candy bars, but still give you the satisfaction and the deliciousness that you look forward to from those special treats. Built Bar has so many amazing flavors. Like I said, my favorite is mint brownie, but they have flavors like cherry and orange for fruit lovers. If you're a heavy chocolate lover, every single bar is covered in 100% chocolate. They have cookie dough. They have coconut almond. They have so many great bars out there for you to try. And most Built Bars can contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar that usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. It's an instant improvement across the board. So go and order a mixed box today. If you haven't ordered a box already from Built.com, you can get a bunch of different bars, a bunch of different flavors for you to try. When you do order, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Try the bars out. Let me know which ones are your favorite, and then go back to Built.com and you can order your own custom box of your favorite bars. It's what my wife and I do really every couple of weeks. And again, when you do order, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by betonline.ag. Hell, if you're not making money on the Kings and their inability to beat shorthanded teams at this point, what are you doing? BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new year and happy New Year's betting as they continue the march to the playoffs and beyond, not just for the NBA, but for the NFL as well. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. Look, you have perspective on the Kings that not a lot of people have. If you follow the Kings closely, you know how this team struggles or how they're successful, where they're successful. If you listen to Locked On Kings, use the knowledge that we share to help you make money with BetOnline. It's a new year, new updated desktop and mobile website. So if you sign up today, you can receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All you have to do is use promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, to get started. From football to basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. It was a winnable game for the Kings against the shorthanded Hawks team. They dropped the ball, and now things get a little more difficult. They head on the road to take on a Denver Nuggets team, which, of course, the Kings had success against last season. I have little faith in their ability to replicate that, but hey, maybe they'll be able to do it at the Mile High. And then they take on a Blazers team who I believe I read, and it's been reported, that Damian Lillard will not be playing in that game. So you'd think that would be a good thing, but what is the joke? But more often than not, an actual legitimate saying here on Locked On Kings. The Kings' chances of winning drop with Damian Lillard not playing in that game, it seems like. So they have the Nuggets and then the Blazers on the road, and then they come home for games against the Cavaliers, Lakers, and a couple of games against the Rockets. And then the schedule really gets difficult for the Kings after that. So you need to try and take advantage of these winnable games right now, like you were unable to do in tonight's game against Atlanta. A quick peek at the standings, and I misspoke earlier. The Kings have now lost their sole possession of the 10th seed. They've dropped to the 11th seed, a half game back of the San Antonio Spurs, who are now in the 10th seed. I think San Antonio beat the Boston Celtics in Boston tonight. But that being said, the Kings are still just 3.5 games back of the 9th spot, 4.5, or rather, they're just 3 games back of the 9th spot, 4 games back of both 8th and 7th, and 4.5 games back of 6th. Like I said in the last segment, as long as that door is open for the Kings, they are going to go for it. And at the same time, they're only half a game above the Blazers in 12th, a game and a half above the Thunder or the Thunder in 13th and 2 games ahead of the Pelicans in 14th. So they're hovering right around the cellar and the play-in / playoff picture. We'll see what this Kings team decides to do. And of course, as trade talks heat up, as trade rumors heat up, as we get closer to the trade deadline, expect more great content here on Locked On Kings, all to do with trades. If you want to send me your hypothetical trades, please do so. And if you could take a time to leave a review for the Locked On Kings podcast here in 2022, I'd really appreciate that. You can do it on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It's really the best place to do it. Hit 5 stars. There's also a little box where you can write why you encourage others to listen to Locked On Kings, whether they're a Kings fan or not. It's also a good place for constructive criticism. Or if you're on Spotify, if you listen on Spotify, you can now just leave a star rating. I'd appreciate it if you hit 5 stars there as well. Thank you so much for your support. As always, I'll see you back for the next episode of Locked On Kings, which will be after the Nuggets game, unless something happens and I'll do a podcast before that. But regardless, we will be back for more Kings content. I hope you will join me for it. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.